Welcome. We are so thrilled to have all of you joining us for our Good Conflict webinar for beginners. So today we get to do something pretty cool, and it's something that we really enjoy, and you will likely, you can tell by how hyped we are right now. And the plan is to navigate conflict alongside all of you. So to find ways to use it to get stronger and actually have a little fun in the process. And I know that sounds completely impossible given the topic, but we are really going to try. So we will start by introducing ourselves and then asking you all to answer a couple of questions. So Amanda, can you kick us off?
Absolutely. Thank you, Len. So I'm Amanda Ripley. I'm a journalist, an author, and a conflict mediator. Before starting Good Conflict with Len, I spent 10 years at Time Magazine and other places where I got to do reporting all over the world, and I got eventually very obsessed with conflict about 6 or 8 years ago as our country got more and more captured by all kinds of conflicts. And it was really hard to know how to be useful as a journalist in particular. And usually when I get really freaked out about something, I write a book about it. It turns out that really helps. I recommend it. In some ways, it's like torture, but in other ways, it's very therapeutic. So I followed people for my latest book, High Conflict. I followed people in communities that were trapped in really difficult, dysfunctional conflicts of all kinds, and then found a way out to try to see what could they teach the rest of us? How did they transform the conflicts they were in? And that changed me fundamentally as a journalist, as a person, and it led me to want to share these lessons with other people, which is how I met Len. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Len B. Hofer, a journalist, a documentary producer, and now a fully trained conflict mediator. And before we launched Good Conflict, I spent nearly a decade hosting a TV news magazine program. So covered everything from police reform in the US to education in South Sudan. And I got interested in conflict because the news started to feel like throwing gasoline on a fire. And I did not get into journalism for that. I got into help people connect with the world, to see possibility and hope even when times are really hard. But instead, I started to feel like I was making things worse, causing more fear and more fury and just less understanding. And that did not sit well with me. So I had a choice, and I could keep adding to the chaos or learn how to do it differently. So I read an article by my friend in 2019, Amanda, and it was called Complicating the Narratives. And she wrote this in-depth piece explaining how journalists can learn from experts in conflict to strengthen their coverage when it comes to controversial, polarizing issues. So after that, I had this mission. I joined the Solutions Journalism Network and developed a training curriculum based on Amanda's research and trained over 1,200 journalists around the world. And that journey led to this and how we created Good Conflict, where we help people turn tension into connection. It is possible, and we've seen it happen. And that's our mission today. We want to get smarter about how we disagree and how we fight. And it does not happen naturally, as you would guess. It has to be learned and practiced in a really, really forgiving space. And that is exactly what this is here today. So we've got a lot planned for our time together, including teaching you this tactic that has completely revolutionized how we communicate, and you'll be able to use it immediately with roommates, friends, spouses, colleagues, you name it, strangers on the bus. It is a gift that keeps on giving, we promise. All right, so we are ready to dive in, right, Amanda?
Excellent. And so we already feel like we've talked too much, and we want to hear from you. Yeah. So please make use of the chat. And if you could, first of all, this picture, this is how I feel when I wake up in the morning.
Don't we all? And still so adorable.
I know, it's so lovable. That's what I am, you know? I'm like just messy but lovable. All right, so before we go any further, we want to ask you, what do you think of, now don't answer yet. Some of you already answered, which is fine. I didn't.
Amanda,
I wasn't fast enough. You guys are good. You guys are good. Put in the chat, what do you think of when you hear the word conflict, what comes to mind? And then we're going to hit send together. 1, 2, 3.
Go.
What comes to mind when
All
you
right.
think of the word conflict? We've got difference. Ooh, fear, opportunity. Ooh, Cynthia with the
Okay.
counterintuitive.
Nice.
Polarization, fear. Oh, that's a good one, Sarah. Exhausting and important. I love that, Tara. Fight, war, anger. Yeah, that sums it up. Challenge, scary. Someone has to be right or wrong. Interesting. Opportunity to find new possibilities, different perspectives, what I exist to help work through. Oh, that's beautiful. Opposing viewpoints, zero sum outcome. Oh, that's an interesting one. Yeah. Okay, so for most of us, the word conflict has pretty negative connotations. Not all of us, right? Conflict is a struggle or a clash between opposing forces. It can be between people or groups. A lot of conflict is internal, right? Between me and myself, myself, and I.
That's right.
At least for me. But whatever the case, it's stressful by definition.
Yeah.
And we also know, right, that all biological systems require stress to perform at their best, which is why we need to exercise, why we need friction, motion, and even conflict, right? Depending on the kind of conflict. So in nature, the function of stress is to keep our biological systems in balance. But the kind of stress really matters. The kind of conflict really matters. So that's what we want to ask you to consider with us today. And there is no right answer, right? And you all have a lot of answers from your own experiences. So one of the questions we want you to consider with us is what kind of conflict will keep you and your community and family and country in balance?
That's good. That's good. Okay. So with that in mind, that question, just maybe write it down, something that we're going to think on together. We do have another question for you. We got lots of questions. But this one, we want to kind of get a sense of where you're coming from. So most of us really have a go-to tactic for dealing with conflict. And yes, it always depends on the circumstance for sure. We might avoid it. We might hope it will go away. That is incredibly common and understandable. We might actively try to compromise and appease. Maybe we lean on this effort to keep the peace. Some of us might engage or investigate the conflict. We might get curious or even fight back. And we might be someone who is really quite comfortable with conflict. So we like to ask you each to choose, which do you do most often? So maybe when it comes to conflict at work, which is your most common response? And if you're not working or you're retired, what would you say is your most common response to interpersonal conflict? So people close to us, partners, kids, siblings, parents, what do you do? Would you avoid? Do you fight back? Appease? Investigate something else? So just kind of think about that.
I think people are really incredibly holding back, waiting for us to do a countdown.
Do it. This is Amanda's favorite part is the countdown.
So thank you for that. Thank you. I just think it's exciting when we all enter these at once. I don't know. All right, put down, ready, set, go. What is your most common conflict response? Avoid and appease. Oh, that's true. Those go together nicely, don't they? Yeah. Fight back, investigate, and try to reframe. That's interesting. Strategize how I can win. That's awesome.
I love the honesty.
Something else. Willie says something else. Interesting. I'm intrigued. Number 5, investigate. What's the thing beneath the thing? Ooh, that's a good one. All right. So we're getting a range, like a really unusual range of different responses here. And I feel like it's worth pointing out that all of these options have their place, right?
Yeah.
Just depends on the situation. And you can probably guess that we have an opinion about not which one of these is better all the time, but which one works best right now in the moment that we are in. But we'll get back to that in a second. So first, we want to also make sure we acknowledge that everyone is coming to each conflict with different past experiences, different levels of power in any given room or society. People treat you differently in conflict, depending on how you look or your status. And it's not a fair fight necessarily. For all those reasons, it's really important to be strategic in conflict and develop the skills to make it a better fight,
Mm.
even when it will never be truly fair,
Yeah.
so that if nothing else, we can sleep better at
Yeah.
night, like that
Yeah.
internal conflict piece of
Yeah.
it, the one thing we
Yeah.
can control. So that is
That's right.
our pitch to you today.
So we're here today because let's be honest, there's a lot of conflict in the air right now. So we've got global conflicts, political conflict, social media conflict, you name it. We are just immersed in it. And we've been working with politicians, CEOs, journalists, nonprofit employees, school leaders, even pastors. And a lot of people are struggling with conflict these days. And if you look
Mm-hmm.
at the research and the predictors of future conflict, we know that the level of conflict is unlikely, unfortunately, to decrease in the near future.
That's right.
What that means is then the only healthy option is to harness conflict. So let's try to use it to get stronger and to do that as people and also as a community. So that's what we're going to try to do today. But first, here is what we are not going to do. So we are not going to make the conflict go away. We will not change what other people do. Instead, what we're suggesting is that if we can lean into conflict in a different way, we can create these ripple effects that may affect the whole system of conflict. And at the very least, help us to preserve our sanity. And also, as you said, Amanda, we can sleep better at night, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we found for ourselves and with others that when we have the vocabulary and guardrails and basic skills to investigate conflict, it will change everything for us. So
Yes.
we've seen it happen. We know it's possible. It can be done. It's happened many times. But it requires, and Amanda mentioned this because we saw this in the chat when you were giving some people were giving responses, counterintuitive things. We've got to try counterintuitive, unexpected things, as we will see.
Exactly. So that's our goal today, to help each other investigate or navigate conflict differently so that we can use it to our advantage. And some of you are already doing this in different ways.
Yeah.
And so we want to learn from you. We want to find ways together, as Ellen said, as a community to get stronger and wiser about conflict, to cultivate functional conflict in a dysfunctional time.
Yeah. Okay, so between the two of us, we spent about a decade following people who understand conflict intimately. So everyone from conflict mediators to divorce lawyers, negotiators, gang violence interrupters, psychologists, all sorts of people. And what we've learned is that conflict is not the problem. We actually do need conflict to get better, to be pushed, to challenge each other. And that's what we like to call a good conflict, an homage to what the late John Lewis used to call good trouble. And we need more of that, not less. But the real problem is something, Amanda, you have spent a lot of time researching, which is high conflict. So can you explain that and break that down?
Absolutely. So sometimes this is called intractable conflict or malignant conflict in the research, right?
Yeah.
But high conflict is the kind of conflict that escalates to a point where it just takes on a life of its own. It becomes conflict for conflict's sake. It's a different category of conflict. The normal rules of behavior don't really apply. We know from the research that our brains behave differently in this state. All of our normal biases become much stronger. We literally lose our peripheral vision, which means we start to make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
We collapse into us versus them thinking. We dehumanize our adversaries, all of which ultimately can mean that violence is much more likely. And eventually, and this is probably the most diabolical and consistent thing I have seen in every kind of high conflict I've studied or reported on. Eventually, we start to harm the thing we hold most dear, the thing we went into the fight to protect, whether it's our children or our country. And we keep seeing this happen, right?
Yeah.
Over and over again. So for us, we've been really focused on how can we stay in good or healthy conflict and avoid high conflict. And we think it starts, like most things that are difficult and complicated, with being able to name them and tell the difference between them. Len, do you want to walk us through some of those differences?
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so this comes from the Difficult Conversations Lab at Columbia University. And there is a professor there by the name of Peter Coleman, and he has studied over 500 conflict conversations with his team. And what they discovered is that in some of those conversations, people would experience the same one or two emotions over and over and over again. So they would experience anger and then frustration. Then it would go back to anger and then to frustration and back and forth. And they were sort of stuck, right? And it really felt that way. It looks that way based on what we're seeing. But then in other conversations, they found that people experienced, yes, anger and also frustration, but then they would have these moments of curiosity and understanding. There would be flashes of humor and then moments of confusion. And then they would go back to anger and frustration. And in these conversations, which emotions were all over the place, which is what we can see here, they discovered something really interesting. The people that had these conversations, they left that lab much more satisfied than when they had come in. And so then the question is, why? And it was because they learned something. So they learned something about the other person, about themselves, or about this hot button issue that they were discussing that they did not know before. So the goal then of good conflict culture is to really help all of us to move away from high conflict toward toward good conflict, where it's going to feel messy and emotions are going to be all over the place, but where we're learning something about ourselves, about others, and about our world.
Exactly. And I think we all know what this feels like, right? We've seen it, we've felt it. There is a difference here. And so this is just a little graphic to give us a sense of the differences, the sort of how you know when you're in one or the other. So if we want to collaborate with each other and coexist on this planet, can we try to nudge conflict out of the left column here of high conflict and into the good conflict side? Starting with our own internal experience, right? So moving from contempt to anger, first of all, because anger, turns out, is very useful in conflict. It's a signal that something needs attention. And if you're angry with me, it means you want me to be better, right? Like you want me to do something differently. But contempt means you've given up on me. And that's a really important difference. In all the research on conflict, contempt is much harder to work with. And in studies of marital conflict, contempt is one of the best predictors of divorce, as is disgust, right? So in high conflict, we have this kind of closed, rigid state. We miss a lot of things. We're very convicted. We're very sure. In good conflict, we're a little less sure. We're more open, right? And in high conflict, there tends to be superiority, a feeling that we are better than. And that is so powerful, right? I've felt it myself. It's like a drug.
Yes, it is.
Feels
It's
good.
true.
Oh my gosh, give me some of that. It actually feels safe, right? Like morally safe, which is a trick of the mind, because typically when we feel superior, we're less likely to question ourselves and the people in our group. And then it's also, as it turns out, impossible to be heard by the other side, because people are really good at sensing if you think you're better than they are. And it poisons the relationship, just like contempt does, right? As we keep seeing. Curtis Toller, who taught us a lot about conflict, who works on gang violence prevention at Chicago CRED, he likes to say that anytime there's a better than and a less than, there's always room for war. And we know that from the research. So let's just take a moment to think about when we felt these different things, what helps keep us in good conflict, what makes high conflict really magnetic. We see here simplicity. I just want to note simplicity is a really tricky one, right? Like in high conflict, everything gets very clear. We tend to do something psychologists call splitting, where we split the world into good and evil, and we know for sure who's on which side, or we think we know. And it's true that some things are actually really simple. Not everything is complicated, especially really awful injustices or acts of violence. They are not that complicated. But people are complicated, and that's the rub, right? So when we oversimplify people, we do miss things, especially large groups of people. So Len, we learned something very interesting that particularly pertains to people who work in communication or journalism from the Difficult Conversations Lab. Do you want to share what that was?
Yeah. Yeah, so back to if we were to go back to those, we saw those two images of the different types of conversations. And what they found out, the researchers, that they could actually create high conflict or good conflict. And all they had to do, and this is so interesting, this might resonate with some of you, all they had to do was give people a short news article to read before they entered the lab. So the story was about something, some other big thing that was going on, some other controversy. So not the one that they were about to argue over. So they might read about a controversy around abortion or immigration. But here's the thing. So one version of the story that they gave folks before they entered the lab was very simple. It was a story that only depicted two sides. So let's say one side against immigration and one side for immigration, as though there could only be two sides. So that story was, it's, Amanda, that's one that we are familiar with,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that most
Mm-hmm.
traditional news stories are like that. But
Yep.
the other story, it was the exact same length on the exact same subject, but what it did was acknowledge more complexity. So, what I mean by that is there weren't just two sides, there were
Mm.
four or five or maybe more. So, some think this, some think that, some are not even sure what to think, right?
Mm.
They're confused.
It's a lot of people.
A
Yeah.
lot. So,
Typically.
me too, sometimes, right?
Me
So,
too, for sure.
so they found that the people who got that more simple story before they entered the lab were much more likely to get stuck in high conflict conversations and to not make progress. But the people who got the more complicated story, they were much more likely to have a good conflict conversation so that they experienced all sorts of different emotions. And that's a pretty big discovery if you think about it, because complexity is not only a sign of good conflict, it is a tool unto itself, like curiosity. So when we can use it strategically, it can be a way, as Amanda said, to nudge us out of what we see on this high conflict column over to good conflict, over to like a way to have much more useful, difficult conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to go back to this chart, we see after simplicity, right? Predictability. And predictability, that describes the way that we can just get stuck in these same repeating patterns and scripts. And I am so guilty of that. And I have those predictable narratives that get stuck in my head. And it's really difficult because then you can never really experience moments of surprise when you
Mm.
live in this state of predictability. And of course, the number one reason to care about all of this is because in high conflict, violence is much more likely. And once gets going, it will lead to more violence.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, as Amanda discovered in her research, the ultimate high conflict trap. Okay, so now we have, there's a lot that we shared, but we have this framework now, right? We have a framework for understanding two different kinds of conflict, good and high conflict. And as you can probably tell, we have found that it is extremely useful and helpful to try the best that we can to stay in good conflict. But what about
Mm.
the people, right? Because we're not living on islands by ourselves. We've got to deal with other folks.
Mm-hmm.
They might not be interested in good conflict. We've experienced this. Well,
Yep.
especially then, it is really life-changing to work to stay in good conflict in your own head. Because when we do that, we will make fewer mistakes.
Which doesn't mean it's easy.
Absolutely. No, it's a daily practice. It really
Yeah,
is. And
literally
sometimes works,
hourly
it doesn't.
sometimes.
Yes, minute, seconds, by the seconds. Um, but we'll start to see when we do that, we'll see opportunities and threats much more clearly. We'll be more effective in whatever fight we're fighting, whatever is, challenging us. We'll be able to do that. So, Amanda, now the question is,
Yeah.
this is all really nice, you two. Thanks.
Yeah. Nice
But
theory.
how in the world do we stay in good conflict, especially when we're in this age of high conflict? And this is when
Exactly.
things get fun, right?
Exactly. And this is when we get to play. So
Yeah.
we've talked at you a bit. We're going to stop doing that so much, and we're going to try to play a little bit and practice a little bit. We're going to share our favorite tactic for investigating the understory, the thing the conflict is really about. It's a way to help us all communicate when it's so easy to shut down and make assumptions in tense situations. It's something some of you may have already had training in. What we found is you can never get enough training in this skill. I hope until the day I die, be trying to get better at this. It's something very few of us do well. Even people, Helen's trained a couple thousand journalists by now in this, and they all tend to think they do this really well. But like us, they realize, you know what? I've never had good coaching in this. So this is a really good way to build trust and get better, deeper insight from people, even when you are never going to agree with them. So we're going to play a quick clip here so you can, this is just a funny thing that you may have seen online, but this will show what we are not doing enough of typically. Let's watch.
Was Constance Landry. She says she's lived here her entire life, almost 80 years, been through just about everything.
Ain't no 80 years old.
Well, just about. I'm sorry, Miss Constance. 76 to be
No,
exact.
75.
75. Are you? Was Constance?
We're not going to play it again. Oh, we love it every time, right?
Oh, I feel for that reporter. I feel for her.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you've been that reporter.
Yes.
Someone's in your ear, you're on deadline.
It's hard. It is hard to do the thing that she missed. What is the thing that she didn't do? What do you guys think? What could
Which
we
Miss
use?
Constance really noticed.
Oh,
Miss Constance could
felt
tell that this reporter not listening to her.
Yeah. Yeah. Not listening.
Yeah. And the truth is, we can go through life kind of barely listening or just listening for what's interesting to us, not to the other person. But when we do that, we lose huge opportunities to make conflict generative. So it's a way to understand where someone's coming from, even when you don't agree. Because once people feel heard, like you get their age right, for example, they say different things. They make more coherent, flexible, revealing points. They acknowledge their own doubts.
Yeah.
And they may even listen to you. Like they may not, to be fair. But what we found is there's no way that they're going to listen until they feel heard. So it's a little bit of a game of chicken, like who's going to listen first. Okay, so this is a practice that we found to be very effective. And this is something that Helen's going to introduce called looping.
Yes. So looping is a deep listening technique that we learned from a veteran conflict mediator named Gary Friedman. And what this involves is it's just basically a way to listen. So really listen and then prove to the other person that you heard them. And as you're listening, what's happening is you're just focusing on the other person's response to a question. And you're trying to understand what is most important to them. That is it.
Exactly. That is the key to them. Like when I first started, I kept listening for what was most important to me.
Right.
For a story I was writing. Yeah. Okay. So the first thing to know is it's not about you. And the second thing to know is don't worry about your next question or trying to give this person advice or just, first, it's like an order of operations situation. Like first, before anything else, we're listening for what's most important to the other person. And in particular, we're listening for what we might call red flag words or metaphors. These are things where you hear a word that's a little stronger than you expected. Like you think someone's going to say they were annoyed, but instead they say they felt sick to their stomach. Right? And your brain kind of glitches. I don't know about you, but my brain, like when that happens, my brain's like, wait, what? Like I do a little mental double take. And what I've been working on is trying to notice that double take, because that means there's something important to them. And there's probably more they want to tell you. So these are little clues that people leave you so you can figure out what else they want to tell you, what's important to them. Metaphors when people use analogies of some kind, that tends to suggest there's something deeper there. And so we're trying to figure out what else is here. And those are things that you might want to loop back to them. And this is a way, especially in a low trust climate like we're in,
Mm.
This is a way to prove to people that you're really trying to understand them, right? Which is different than agreeing with them.
Yeah.
But people
Yeah.
can really tell when you're trying to understand them. And so, Len, do you want to lead us through the actual practical
Yeah.
steps
Let's
of
do it.
this?
Yeah. Let's do it. All right. So these are the 4 steps of looping. Very first thing we do is just listen attentively to the other person. So we're listening for what matters most to them, not to us.
Yes.
The second step is we distill what they shared with us in the most elegant words that we can find, focusing on what we sensed was most important to them. The third step is to check in. So, what this means is we're actually asking if our understanding is accurate or if we miss something. And we will tell you this check in, this is the thing that we rarely do. And yet, it is what makes people feel like you are really trying to understand them, even if you don't agree with them. So when you do this, when you do the check-in, and if you discover that you missed something, right? Just ask them, what did I get wrong? And then try again before moving forward. So this is a step, I'm telling you that step 3, this is the step that we're most likely to forget at first. When we've seen this happen again and again, but it is really, really important. And then finally, step 4 of looping just involves asking the other person to share more. And you can just simply say, tell me more. Tell me more about that. Because you're trying to understand. You want to know what matters to them, their experiences, why they believe the way that they do about something. And Amanda said this, and I just want to reinforce it. Looping is not about agreement. It is about understanding. So when we genuinely use this technique, you're going to notice something happens. You become more curious, even maybe when at first you were not. And that creates this sense of comfort and trust, no matter how divisive the issue is. And Chris Voss, a former hostage negotiator, he says that this type of listening is like a discovery process. So you're trying to help the other person hear what they're saying to find out if what they are saying makes sense to them, right? It is a clarifying process even for the other person when it happens.
Exactly. Makes sense to them. We've seen this happen again and again,
Yes.
where when someone's looping me, I suddenly realize something about what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Yes. That's it. That's it.
And we're going to put in the chat the 4 steps to looping that we just shared. So that'll be there for you. But now we're wondering, you might be feeling a little skeptical. This might feel super obvious. We don't blame you. So we're going to give you a little quick demonstration of what this looks like in real life. And if we had more time, we would show you how I used to listen to people and how I do it now, and you would see the difference. But this time I'm going to try, this is not like a linear process, but I'm going to try to loop Helene, and she's going to answer this question, which is describe a conflict, any conflict that you've been in recently. What happened? How do you feel about it now?
Okay. All right. Well, should we stop sharing so people can see? Should we do that?
Okay, good idea.
Yes,
Yeah.
we'll do it. Okay, go to the screen. Okay, so we were recently in Nashville. We had a training with school leaders in Nashville for good conflict. And when I left, so I'm like returned to the airport to catch my flight back to New York. I was walking across the street with my luggage, and my husband was behind me. And I was just walking across the street to get to the departure terminal so I could do my check-in, that whole process. And at the airport, there's that ramp when you're walking, like you're supposed to slow down for pedestrians when you see them. So one car slowed down for me, and then another one did not, and almost ran into me. And my husband was behind me. He was like, "Stop!" And he's like screaming. And I'm thinking, I've lived in New York. I watched traffic. So he was close to hitting me, but didn't. So I watched him because he didn't look at me, didn't acknowledge me, nothing, and just kept driving and then pulled over to drop off the passenger in his car. So I said to my husband, I'll be right back. Just give me a moment. So I walked over because I was going to acknowledge like what happened and just what should have happened and didn't. And so my body temperature was going up. I could feel it. And I just said, excuse me. And he turned around and he said, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And so I didn't, he like was cut me off before I even got a chance to say to him, like what I wanted to say. And I just said calmly, I said, I just want you to know, like, you got to be careful. Like that is, we're clearly supposed to slow down for pedestrians and you did not do that. And he's like, I didn't see you, but I just didn't see you. And then I put my hand up because I realized after the fact. And I said, listen, I'm telling you this, you can be careful. And it's not just about me and other pedestrians, it's also about you. Because if you hit someone, you will not be the same. And that's all I wanted to tell you. And I just walked away.
I just want to interrupt you to make sure I'm understanding. So not only did this person almost hit you with their car, but then it sounds like the second injury was they just kept driving. There was no acknowledgement,
Right.
which is why you then went over and wanted to be seen, it sounds like, to be seen
Yeah.
and point out to them what almost happened. But it sounds like you also did it in an interesting way where you said it wasn't just about you, it was about them. Like trying to speak to this person in a way that makes them feel seen, an interesting twist, I guess, right? To show like the potential impact on their life if they were to hit a pedestrian. And so you kind of flip the script like that. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I wanted him to know that the stakes are high for you too. You're like, the person will get hit, but this is going to, and I know someone who's hit somebody. Your life is not the same after you do that. It's not. But yeah.
So it was you were coming to him to do a couple of things, to like be seen yourself and to impart a warning
That's right.
about
That's right.
what this could mean for him, even
That's
if he
right.
doesn't care about other people. Is that right?
Yeah. That's right. That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that, Helen.
Yeah.
Sorry that happened. Actually remember because I left at a different
Yeah,
time.
you did.
But I
did.
remember that drop off being kind of harrowing. Like
Oh, it
the way it
was.
was just, yeah. All right. So you may have noticed there that when I first looped Helene, I didn't get it quite right. And you see what she did? She just very naturally went and added on, right? And then she told me something more, right? You told me about your friend who had hit someone and how they were forever changed by that experience.
I do want to point out though, when you said to be seen, that's what it was. And I didn't think about that in the moment, but that was what it was, because you didn't see me, supposedly, when you almost hit me. But I knew I couldn't just walk away from that. Like I needed to make sure that he saw me. So I didn't think about it like in the moment that I want to be seen, but that was right. Yeah.
Right. Because it's one thing for someone to almost hit you and then be like, like, oh my gosh. Right.
Yeah.
And Nazra, I hope I'm saying that right, points out in the chat that you said that you needed to be acknowledged. And so I looped you on that. Tara points out that red flag words kept coming up. Oh, that's true. Like seen and acknowledged. Right. And I think you also said forever changed or something like that about what happens if you.
Yes. That's right. That's right.
That's also a red flag. And Nazra compliments you, Helene, on your compassion and control in the moment.
Thank you. Nazra, I'll tell you, my husband was like, go tell him off. And I was like, I cannot do that.
Tell him off. And we're not even in that moment.
Nazra, I agree. I would have a hard time.
Yeah, no way.
Yeah. Especially when I'm afraid, I just go immediately to anger. Like I just get really angry. And it feels safer. So even when it's definitely not. This is Nashville. I mean, you don't know who's armed. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, so I come out, too hot. You don't know what's going to happen.
No.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Helene.
Thanks for looping. Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay. You may have also noticed, thinking back to that slide where we saw the difficult conversations lab, that a looping conversation is like a galaxy of emotions with lots of twists and turns, and we go back, right? It's not linear. So I had questions I wanted to ask Ellen, like follow-up plot questions about what happened when, and what did her husband do, and then, but I didn't ask it. I'm just trying to show some self-restraint until I've looped her, right? And then I can tell her about, how when I was there, I also felt, right? Like I didn't do that either, even though I was tempted. I did that later. So that's something to keep in mind, is that we often want to chime in with our own experiences or ask questions. And it's fine to do that, but you first want to loop the person anytime someone comes to you with any emotion, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Now it is your turn. All right. So you are going to test that looping, and we will do this in a very low stakes situation. Okay. So here's how this will work. We're going to share an imagine if scenario with you, and we'll provide more info in the chat. But what you'll do is you're going to get the scenario and then just take a moment to think. We want you to paraphrase. What do you think is most important to the other person? And then share it in the chat. Okay? So it's like you're going to loop them, and you're going to really hone in on, based on what I'm reading here, this is what I sense is most important to the other person. All right, here we go. So imagine if, I love these little imagine if things. So imagine if you've been juggling 2 jobs because another team member recently quit and has been replaced. And you're trying your best to get everything done, and there just is not enough time in the day. So you wake up, and then you find this email waiting for you. And it's being shared in the chat right now, and it's an email from a coworker. All right. So take a moment to read that email, and then write a response to the person in the chat that involves looping. Okay? That's what we want to try here.
This is not easy, by the way.
No way. No
I definitely,
way.
this was a challenge. And I think as I look at this, like one sentence might be a little bit extreme. Like, why don't you take as many sentences as you need? You're not paying by the letter, most likely, at this point. So, and I'll just, for anyone who needs it, I'm just going to read the imaginary email from your colleague. Per my previous email, I'm wondering what your timeline is for finishing the slide deck. As you may recall, see attached email, the deadline was Tuesday. I've got a meeting with the client this afternoon, and I have no idea what to say. In the future, I would appreciate more advance notice if you're unable to meet a deadline. Turning in slide decks at the last minute reflects poorly on all of us. Okay, so you'll also see right above that in the chat a reminder of the looping steps. Obviously, written form might be a little different, but you get the basic idea there. And so when you're ready, we're going to give you a countdown, and we're going to ask everyone to hit send at the same time. But I'm going to give you a second here. And again, there's no right answer here. But remember, what we're trying to do is understand this person and make them feel heard before we point out the 75 things that are wrong with this email. Because I can already, this is imaginary, and I'm already annoyed. I'm like, what? So anyway, before I do that, I know this conflict is there's something in here for me. Don't know what it is, but the only way to find out is to start, in our experience, is to start by looping them.
Yeah.
Okay. On your marks. Get set. Go. Let's go.
All right. Tell me what you're seeing, Amanda.
All right. I'm seeing from Katie. It sounds like it's really important to you to make a good impression on this client. Nice. That must have been frustrating. I understand how important it is to not look poorly in front of the client. I hear you feel stretched for time and are worried how the missed deadline reflects negatively on the team. Nice. I hear
nice job.
You have a client meeting this afternoon and that you need a slide deck to have ready. Okay, so this is what is happening. It sounds like you are frustrated because you weren't able to make a good impression. Nazra says, hi colleague, let me see if I get you. It understands like you're frustrated and annoyed about the delayed deck. The delay is also a problem before your meeting this afternoon. I know you care about our clients. Let's get on a call to figure this out quickly. Wow.
I like that.
Martha says, it sounds like you are in an awkward situation, not knowing what to say to your worker.
Oh.
Okay. I love that people all acknowledged the emotion here, right? They didn't skip over it.
Yeah, every single one did. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think, the thing I see missed most often when like your pilot tells you that the plane is being delayed for 2 hours. If they don't acknowledge that this is disappointing and frustrating, then you're just like extra, it's like twice as annoying.
Yes, it is.
So these are great. I'm sorry, Melissa. Ooh, Melissa with the apology right out the gate. I'm sorry I dropped the ball and didn't make the deadline or communicate this to you. I know you value timeliness. Again, I'm sorry. Wow.
I like the apology at the top. Like that. Yeah,
especially
it's not
if it's
easy to do.
True, right? Like if you know you did drop, I mean, look, we've all dropped the ball. I mean,
yes, we have.
This is the way it is.
Yep.
So if you actually did drop the ball and you could just start by saying that, it's going to turn down the heat right away. Willie says, I appreciate your need to get the presentation before the meeting. However, as you're also aware, Tom quit. I will get it to you as soon as I can. I love that. So you did acknowledge. You did acknowledge. Ownership is everything.
Brought facts in. That's good. That's so good. Awesome. This is great. So the first thing, that we would do here, right, Amanda, is we would, and Nazra said this in the response, is really to take this conversation off of email and ask to talk to the person. Whether, can we do this in person or on the phone, recognizing that sometimes it doesn't always work because of geographic location to be in person.
Right, and sometimes you might want to diffuse before you even get on the phone, right? Just for you and them. So, yeah. But yes, ultimately, the phone, I mean, there's just so much research that voice conveys so much information.
That's right.
And in person's even better, obviously.
Yeah.
I think Zoom can be okay, but most important is the voice.
So
if you're going to have about 20 times as likely of getting what you want out of that conversation if it's using your voice and they're hearing their voice.
So that said, take these off of, don't go on Slack and do these conversations. Try not to do text messaging. If you can possibly find a way, as Amanda said, to talk in real time, to hear the voice, we cannot stress this enough, because your odds of getting what you want out of the interaction is going to be much more than double, we would say, in our experience, if you can hear the other person's voice. The big challenge is to make the person feel heard first, before we defend ourselves, or before we feel this need to explain the many reasons why their outrageous accusations are unfair, because we want to be able to do that. But first, we want to make sure that they feel heard. And this is the very difficult part of this. And this is the low ego, humble stance to take. Because, if we don't make them if we don't make them, I'm going to say this right, feel heard first, what will happen is they will not be ready to listen to anything that we have to say. So that's why we stress that it's imperative to make them feel heard first. So what we're hoping is that you will take this technique and that you'll practice it on your own, and to do it in person with somebody or on the phone, and with a friend or a family member, because it does, low stakes. We want you to start by doing this in a low stakes situation, because it does take practice. And over time, it will become automatic. It won't feel that way at first. And for me, it certainly did not. It felt so formulaic and mechanical. But eventually, with your own voice, you find your flow. And using this, it will help you to slow down the conflict, and it will make the other person feel heard. And then you'll be able to discover, okay, so this is what we are really fighting about. And that's the key. Because once we start to see what matters most to the other person, it opens up an array of possibilities. And it also creates space for then us to be able to share our perspective on the issue. So we say that deeper listening is the skeleton key to conflict. It's the prerequisite to everything else. It will build trust. It will open people up to hearing new information, and it will help us to start to dig underneath. And you mentioned this, some of you, really having good conflict is digging underneath to figure out what is going on.
And it is so hard to do right now, and we don't have a lot of examples of it. So we are always collecting
Yeah.
examples. If you hear examples of people really listening when they're interviewing someone on the news or in a podcast or even in a fictional TV show, right?
Yes.
Please share it with us. We have lots of examples of people not listening, but we're trying to create an archive, a collection of examples of what healthy generative conflict looks like so that it's easier to aspire to and to learn from. So please share it with us, and we're going to share ways to keep in touch. And we have two final parting gifts to give you before we say goodbye. I'm hoping we might have time for a question because we'd love to hear from you, but we're trying to just power through a lot here. So on your screen, you will see a QR code. We'll also put the link in the chat if you want to get that looping cheat sheet and some questions, 15 questions to ask in conflict, and some other useful little conflict hacks that we want to share with you that we've learned from lots of people who have been through the woods and back out again. Yes. And if you want to learn more, Helene, you want to share what they can do next?
Yeah, yep. So if you're wanting more, we got you. We have this, we launched in the fall. I'm like, right? It feels like it was many eons ago, but it was this past fall. We launched what we call our most comprehensive training yet, and it's the Good Conflict Masterclass. And it's a self-paced digital course that will equip you to communicate and really work hard to not just help you communicate, but also thrive in this volatile climate that we're living in. And so the course, it draws from our extensive conflict reporting and also resolution backgrounds. And what we do in it is just offer distilled, proven strategies that we've equipped thousands of people like you so that you can say, I got this. It's not always easy, but I got this. So if you feel like something like this might be necessary for you right now, we're offering 25% off for our masterclass. So we want you to be able to have access to these different strategies so that you can build this culture of good conflict, whether it's in your home and your place of work, in your community, in your church, wherever it may be. So just be on the lookout for an email from us that we'll send you with a link. And that link will include this recording plus the promo code for the course. And I think we might have that in the chat too.
Yep, we've
that's
got
it.
it all. Thank you,
Yeah.
Maya, for that.
So guess what, Amanda? We've got 4 minutes. We can spend some time with questions. All right, let's do
Yay.
this. Let's close
Yeah.
these screens down. Go to this screen.
So questions, thoughts, feel free to jump off mute or share it in the chat if you are more comfortable. I'm also putting our email address in the chat in case you do have other questions that you want to take offline, or you have examples of listening or other functional conflict case studies that we could share more widely. Nazra, please, if you're comfortable coming off mute, please.
I'm happy to. Thank you so much. I should let you know I'm a fan. I've stalked Helene on LinkedIn. We got her to do a webinar for my organization. I just want to be seen for that. So
Yes, thank you.
But I really enjoyed this course, and I absolutely would sign up. My question is, I'm hearing more and more. I work in philanthropy, and I work in really interesting issues that are really hard hit today. So what I hear a lot from everyone is we are scared. Whether you have a company, whether you are doing response work in the USA, the fear that I hear the most is I'm scared. Can you still be a good conflict practitioner while in that state?
Wow. I'm glad that you asked this. I live in Washington, D.C. I know people are affected all over the country, but I literally cannot leave my house without encountering someone who is either afraid or threatened or feeling humiliated or disrespected. Literally everyone I know has been affected negatively by the current administration's treatment of the federal government and federal workers. So by the rhetoric, by the way in which cuts have been made, and by the cuts themselves to contractors and employees. So it's very painful. And I actually just wrote my last newsletter about fear management because, Nazra, I don't think you can. I think it's very hard to stay in good conflict when you're frightened. When I talked to Curtis Toller, who we mentioned earlier, who does gang violence interruption, when I talked to him recently, what he said is in the work that they do, everything they're trying to do is to turn down the threat level, so that there's a little less fear. Because when people are afraid, we just make bad decisions, even if we're right to be afraid. It's very, very hard to be curious when you're afraid. They're kind of like mutually exclusive for survival reasons, right? But typically, unless literally you got a gun to your head, and maybe even then, we need to find ways not to get rid of the fear, because that's impossible, but to turn it down. And there are lots of practices for that you probably know a lot about, but I think that's one of the big challenges of this moment, is to try to turn down the threat level while still being engaged and not living in denial. I don't know if that's I feel like that's a super unsatisfying answer, but
No, it's helpful. Yeah,
And
go ahead,
I'd,
Lynn.
I'd add like another thread to that and a different perspective. I think we, when there's fear, there's this need to control something, right? Like there's like this desire to, when there's fear, then there's anxiety. It just kind of feels like we have lost all control. And so, in this state, and I've talked to my uncle is a pastor in Florida, and I've had conversations about this with him. And so it's like, what the question then, and we talked about this, how do we stay in good conflict in our own head when we're not able to control everything that's going on around us? But it's not, and again, and we said this multiple times, this is not an easy thing to do. But what is it that I can do? How do I exercise my own sense of agency in a time like this? And what does that mean? And what does that look like for me? Because when we're able to get to that place, it's not going to solve. It's not going to solve everything.
yeah.
But for like at the very, very least, then we've been able to, okay, this is what I can control. This is what is in my space. This is what's in my realm that I can do to help, and I can do to solve, and I can do to offer, to share, to serve. There's that deep desire to be able to do that. And there's something healing that happens internally when we're able to do that too. So
Yeah,
it's
even if it's a small thing, like, and I just want to, I know we're at time, so if you have to go, please do. But I feel like this is also a really good opportunity, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Ellen, but I'm like, I don't want to miss this opportunity if there's anything you want to put in the chat about what's helping you to turn down the fear or find agency, I feel like that would be really
yeah,
helpful to folks, and
yeah.
we will try to learn from that as well. We're kind of collecting these things as we go. But sorry, Helene.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, shoot.
That's what you get, Amanda. That's what you
That's
get.
my fault.
The greatness is gone now.
That was going to be like the thing. Well, if it comes back to you, but I will say I was at our local library here in DC, and the librarian was telling me about how earlier in the day, a group of folks had come in and they'd reserved a little conference room that you can reserve, and they all had been laid off from USAID. And they were there job searching. And what I loved about that is that they were there together, doing that together. And so it's like really easy to withdraw, to get very isolated. And I don't blame people for that. But I think to be in community is really absolutely critical right now, in whatever form that takes for you, right? And Tara says, it helps me to meet in community. Exactly. Yeah. So if you have other ideas or you want to come off mute, please do. Other questions, other comments.
And we'll just stay on for another 2 minutes and then we will wrap because we realize that people have things to do. So if there's one more question or anything you want to put in the chat.
Cynthia?
I can just share one thing. We're in such a time, and I just did something last week where there was a group of people talking around anti-hate initiatives. And one of the things that got shared is just the need to practice daily hits of joy, and how to find joy within ourselves, and how do we share joy forward. So we can get overwhelmed, but it's just
I love
something
that.
shared with me that I I joyfully pass forward.
And how do you find a daily hit of joy, Cynthia?
It's little, you know, it can be, someone said, I'm from Los Angeles and we've just been through the fires. And someone shared with me that someone just sent someone else some flowers to say, I know that you must be going through a lot of stress right now. And so then that person sent someone else a box of chocolates, you know, so it's really,
nice.
it's like really listening to what is going on underneath and just showing up and being present, listening in a different way.
That's nice. Yeah. Also, I feel like puppy videos, nothing wrong with them. Don't sleep on those.
Pup and cat and the
Oh, I
cat.
knew.
Okay,
Here we
so
go
if
with
we
the
have
cat.
any cat fans, I have the puppy and the cat. Both can bring joy as well. But thank you for that, Cynthia.
We're watching the eagles get born in Big Bear, so
Oh,
Ooh.
that's a good
there's a
one.
live cam.
Nice. That's right. There is. That's
We
true.
live
I
in
forgot about
Picture.
that. Yes.
Yeah.
So good.
Awesome.
Sometimes here I just walk through the zoo, which is nearby. Oh, and
Oh,
baby
Willie.
videos. Yes.
Yes.
Willie, literally, my neighborhood chat, somebody just started sending around like a picture of a baby and their family. And then like all of a sudden there's like a cascade waterfall of different baby
I love
photos
it.
and everybody was so happy. It was like a beautiful thing. Wicked movie, yes. Hang out at the doggy run in the park and have no dog.
No
That's like the best of
responsibility.
all worlds, right?
It is. Totally clear from responsibility. Well, thank you
And
all. Thank
Nazra says,
you.
today in this Zoom is my hit of joy. Great advice, Cynthia. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank
Take
you.
good care.
And you've got
Thank
our
you.
email address, so please be in touch. You'll send an email, and you'll get this recording and a few other goodies. All right.
Thank
you for
you.
being with us
Thank you,
today.
everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Take good care.